Ashe, 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 I say to you all my melanin brothers and sisters, the world over. Yes, it is I, the Mystic Philosopher. And welcome to this another of my podcast and lecture/blog post, themysticp.com. It's another perspective with I, the Mystic Philosopher. And yes, my melanin people, it is high time for reasoning. The title of this podcast, blog post/pleasant presentation is The Fear of Thinking. Another perspective from I, the Mystic Philosopher. It is part of my presentation series called Redemption from the Curse of the Black Spell. And for all those of you, my listeners, that have watched, listened, or read any of my previous videos and blog posts in the series Redemption from the Curse of the Black Spell, you too will no doubt shortly hear, see, and agree that this is another of my thought-provoking presentations that is intended on provoking my fellow highly melaninated brothers and sisters to think and to reason. Come now, let us reason and think together. In preparation for this presentation, I did a quick Google search to find out the top 20 or so things that people in general reportedly feared the most. And among the top 12 are, number one, the fear of flying. Or this is among the top 12. The fear of flying doesn't necessarily come in chronological order. But we have the fear of flying, the fear of public speaking, fear of heights. People are afraid of the dark, the fear of dark, the fear of intimacy, fear of death, fear of failures, fear of rejection. You have the fear of spiders, the fear of commitment, the fear of water, and the fear of being trapped in close quarters, and more. But there is one fear or one phobia that I have personally discovered and observed that was not even mentioned, and one that has plagued and is plaguing the people of this world, and particularly my melanin people, my own melanin people, the world over, and it has also become an epidemic, I might add, among us. And it is the fear of thinking. The fear of thinking. From my perspective, the evidence has shown that as a people, we are more afraid of thinking more than we are afraid of death itself, or afraid of the thing called death itself. Because many of the deaths that are happening among us, and many of the people and the things that are killing us, is simply because of the fact that we are not thinking. And when thinking, the evidence will show that when thinking ceases, reasoning also dies. In fact, the evidence has shown, and the evidence is showing, that collectively, as a people, we are just moving around daily like thinkingless lump of animated protoplasm. And at best, we are just moving around daily like robots that are programmed not to think, but only to react to the system's stimuli. Because the evidence is showing that if we were seriously thinking for ourselves and for the good of ourselves, as all rational and intelligent human does, and as all intelligent humans do and should, we would not be calling ourselves black. If we were thinking, as all rational and intelligent humans do and should do, we would not be calling ourselves black. We would not be calling each other black. We would not be answering to the name or the word black. Or in the least, allow other people, especially our enemies and our oppressors, our haters, to name. Would not allow them to name, label, card, list, and profile us black. The word black, by its very meaning and definition, is literally saying that we are evil, that we are lack of moral goodness, that we are docile, that we are dumb, that we are ignorant and stupid. You name them. And that is who and what we are literally telling people when we call ourselves black. And by the same token, if we were thinking, as all rational and intelligent humans do, the evidence has shown and also continues to show that if we were seriously thinking as all rational and intelligent humans should, then we would not be calling our enemies and Caucasian people white. From the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, many of the things and people that are intentionally and overtly hurting us, that are down pressing us and are exterminating us, is happening to us because of the fact that we are simply not thinking. We're not using our minds, our brains that our modern source, Mother Nature gives us, or gave to us. We are not using it and our senses. We are not using our minds, our brains, and our senses to think and rationally make decisions for ourselves. If we were seriously thinking about them, meaning our enemies, thinking about who and what they really and truly are, and about their evil plots and snares that they have devised to exterminate us, and the fact that these devils cannot change, then we would have come up with some meaningful and practical solutions to both prevent and stop them from happening to us, stop them from hurting us. But because we are not thinking as rational and intelligent humans should, instead most of us are digging our heads deeper and deeper into the sand, praying and worshipping our slave masters and oppressors, our enemies, the same people that are destroying us. We are praying and worshipping their gods and practicing their religions. The same religions and the same gods and the same people that got us into the situation that we now find ourselves in. As a result, we are just vulnerable like sitting ducks waiting to be shot. Because we are not thinking. We are like lambs. Just waiting to be slaughtered. For example, if we were seriously thinking, if we're going to be honest to ourselves now, for those of us who are not so under the cloud of blackness and dumbed down and can afford to think, if we were seriously thinking about what is happening to us right now, at this moment, what is happening to us as a group of people, melanin people, everywhere on this our planet Earth. If we were seriously thinking about who we are and who our enemies are, if we were seriously thinking about our health, the foods and the manufactured food products that we are consuming and putting into our temples, into our bodies, thereby digging our own graves with our own teeth. If we were seriously thinking about the water that we are drinking, the drugs and the alcohols, the liquors that we are deliberately consuming, if we were seriously thinking about the air that we are breathing, the direct and the indirect destruction of our environment that we are consciously and unconsciously participating in, if we were seriously thinking about the music and the lyrics in some of the songs that we are listening to and are allowing to entertain us, if we were seriously thinking about our own survival and our possible future, and the survival and the possible future of our children on this planet. And please notice that I said the possible future of our children, because from my perspective, as it stands right now at this moment, the evidence is showing that our children have no real future. If all our so-called leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, and I say so-called leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, community leaders, you name them, if we were seriously thinking about, if they were seriously thinking about us and not only about themselves, if at all, if all those among us, my people, the murderers, the killers, the rapists, the druggists, the pedophiles, the children molesters or the child molesters, the thieves and robbers, you name them, that are all those that are responsible for committing all the heinous crimes and violence upon us, their own people. If all those among us that are robbing, shooting, murdering, killing, hurting, maiming, abusing and raping our helpless and defenseless women, young girls and boys and infant children, if they were seriously thinking and not behaving like programmed lump of animated protoplasm or robots, if they were seriously thinking like all rational and intelligent humans should and do, then they would not be manifesting these evils. And if we were collectively thinking and we're not afraid of thinking, then the evidence will show that under no circumstances would we as a people, melanin people, be behaving and conducting ourselves the way that we are behaving and conducting ourselves right now. And under no circumstances would we be suffering or living the way that we are living right now. And the reason why we are not thinking is because of the fact that we are both too damn lazy and afraid to think. Now, let's get a little deeper into this topic of thinking. What is thinking? Well, from my perspective, we should always bear in mind that words are only representatives of things and not the actual things themselves. What those things are, we really do not know and may never know, but we can only use words to give them names and description based on their observable behavior and characteristics from where we think that we are observing them. The essence of what those things are may also be best described as being abstract, spiritual, or metaphysical in nature. Thus, thinking from my perspective is the logical process of choosing and selecting ideas from my thoughts, or for my thoughts, from an infinite and endless reservoir of ideas that is or that exist in the abstract or the metaphysical and the spiritual realm. Again, what is thinking according to I, the mystic philosopher? As I have mentioned and explained elsewhere in my earlier writings and presentations, that the thing called our mind, along with all its various discernible components, and our physical body, are all instruments and tools of what I, the mystic philosopher, called the elusive and unknowable I. The elusive and unknowable I that we individually identify with is also what I called an aspect of the one I, which is the unknowable source of all sources. Therefore, without the thing called mind, or without the thing called a mind or the mind, or without a person possessing the thing called mind, or possessing a mind or the mind, it is reasonable for one that has a mind to think that he or she, also known as the mindless person, cannot think. Therefore, thinking, or the process called thinking, is an aspect of the mind. In other words, thinking is an aspect of I mind. And thus, we can and we must logically deduce that one, or we, cannot really know anything or nothing without thinking. Please just ask yourselves and answer these questions. Number one, without thinking, what can I know? Number two, without thinking, what the bleep do I know? Number three, without thinking, how do I know that I know? Number four, without thinking, how do I know that I don't know or that I do not know? When we as natural native earthly human think, in reality, we are not creating anything new, but we are actually recycling, re-amplifying, and recirculating that which already is, or if you prefer, that which already exists throughout the matrix or the system of which we are all a part. That which already is, or that which already exists, can also be called energy and spirit, among many other names. Now, where does thinking come from? From my perspective, thinking comes from that which we may best describe as nothing, no thing, also known as the source of all sources. And this fact, most, if not all, reasonable humans know and would not or may not deny. Thinking is also the ability of the individual I to direct and control the individual I mind towards something or someone. This also involves the process of attracting, selecting, entertaining, rejecting notions and hunches, thereby creating ideas and thoughts or thought formations in I mind, also called information. Now, let me briefly revisit some of the reasons why people, and in particular, my melanin people are afraid to think. Number one, it is because we are too damn lazy. As mentioned before, we are too damn lazy to think. It's easy to listen to a video than to read a book and think. It's easier to subscribe to somebody else's ideology and to believe than it is to think. Number two, it is because we are afraid that we may discover the truth about ourselves, and possible that we are responsible for our own predicament, or that we are responsible for getting ourselves out of the predicament that we are in. We are afraid of discovering those things, or that we are at the very least some, and we may end up have to stop blaming others for any, if not all, of our failures, etc. We're afraid we may discover things that we really don't want to know about ourselves. We may discover that we have to take actions. We have to do things instead of just keep talking. We're afraid to think. 3, we may discover that our enemies and oppressors outsmart us by making life easy for us so that we don't have to think, thereby making us dependent on them. These are all subjects for discussion and reasoning, but I'm sure most of you will get the point. Now, what happened to a people that does not think? When we don't think, our thinking process dies. As the saying goes, if you don't use it, you lose it. Now, Adolf Hitler once said, and I quote, he said, "What good fortune for governments that the people do not think." Again, what good fortune for governments that the people do not think, unquote. There are a few points that I would like for you all to make note of here, and that I want to point out to you from this Hitler's statement. First, please note that he did not say what good fortune for governments that the people do not think. Or rather, let me repeat that. Please note that he did not say what fortune for governments that the people do not think. For fortune by itself can be good, bad, indifferent, or mediocre, or simply a misfortune. But he qualified it by saying, what good fortune for governments that the people do not think. Secondly, please note that he did not say what good fortune for my government or for our government, meaning his then German Nazi government, that the people do not think. But he said, what good fortune for governments that the people do not think. Governments, from my perspective, mean all forms of government. In fact, from my perspective, there is only one government that now governs the planet Earth. But within that one government are different ideological systems called governments. Therefore, it does not matter what form or which ideological system of government that is being used to govern the people. Whether it was or whether it is Hitler's ideological system of government called Nazism, or whether it was the ideological system or systems called communism, socialism, fascism, imperialism, colonialism, totalitarianism, Mohammedanism, Zionism, Talibanism, Catholicism, you name them. Or whether it is the so-called ideological system of government called democracy, then, or democracy that now govern, so-called democracy that now govern the Western world, or even if it is the government that governs your religions and your religious organizations, the governments that govern your place of employment or your school boards, etc. It is good fortune for all governments when we, the people that they govern, do not think. And again, let me remind you of the word government. Govern means controlment. It's of the mind. So governments are mind controllers. So when they can control us to the point and that we suppress our own natural inherent ability to think, then again we are just like thinkingless lump of protoplasms or robots that react only to the government's stimuli or stimuli. Thirdly, please note that Hitler did not say what good fortune for governments that the people cannot think, but that they do not think. As wicked, evil, and lie as we are told that Hitler was, here and to the best of my current knowledge, he did not say that the people that are being governed, or we the people that are being governed, could not or cannot think, nor that he himself even believed such a lie. He said that they do not think, and that it is a good fortune for all governments when we do not think. Therefore, if it is a misfortune or a bad luck for governments, if the people should think, or should the people start thinking, then the few of us who dare to think would think that it is in the best interest for all governments to keep the people from thinking, and what better way for them to do it than to lie to them and have them or have us believe lies. So, I hereby implore you, my fellow melaninated brothers and sisters, to think. Think for yourself. Think collectively. Let us reason. Let us think about what is happening to us. Let us think about what is being done to us. Let us not be afraid to think. It's not about right or wrong thinking, but think logically. Let us start think, not just accept what we are told, not accept what we are told to believe. Let us question. Let us remove the veil of blackness from our minds and from our eyes. Let us get rid of this blackness thing. Stop calling ourselves black, and you'll be surprised to see the illumination, the light that starts to shine in your mind and in your giving you understanding, understanding, and overstanding. Again, let me thank you for your time spent listening and watching my perspective, watching this video or my perspectives. And and answer your comments, your questions, and feedback are encouraged. Now, for more thought-provoking insights and perspectives on many other topics, I hereby invite you to please check out the rest of my uploaded videos and podcasts and blog posts at www.themysticp.com, and also on my YouTube channel called The Right Number. That is youtube.com/The Right Number. I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.